Okay, checking everyone can... Whoa, let's see how we're doing with that. Everyone hear me okay? So thanks for staying with me. I know it's a long day and I'm here at the last shift, but I can promise you a lot of animations, some very pretty pictures, barely any words left that you need to concentrate on now for the rest of your day. So it should be a pleasant enough one, and if we've got time, obviously I'll hang about for any Q&A afterwards at all. So I'm here as, as just introduced, as this sort of, I guess, comparison, roughly speaking, with where London is, both as a kind of smart, future-looking city, and of course, specifically with EV charging. So we often talk about this in a completely arrogant way that Dubliners may get utterly offended by, but we do try and think about this quite a bit, that the future of the city in every sense, in the broadest sense, before we drill it right down into something as specific as EV charging. So overall, in London, we've got another 2 million people coming in. So effectively, you're looking at Dublin and a bit all coming in the next 20 years. And within that context, we need to hit this 80% target. So the EV is part of a bigger strategy to try and decarbonize, focus on everything else that we're doing, including currently building more homes than anyone in London. So we've taken this much, much wider approach to a city development and said we're going to try and address those bigger challenges of things like home building, things like retail, things like addressing car parks, arches, everything that goes with that, and a full mobility package. So I'm obviously not going to go into great detail in a lot of that today, but these are just some of the things that we've got going on. So I look after energy and electrification, but of course my colleagues are looking at all of these different things. And of course the really, really clever bit is how do you integrate them? How do you think about an EV charging hub that maybe sits below a residential development, that maybe sits alongside bus infrastructure, that maybe includes micromobility and step-down logistics from HGVs. So there's a much, much wider focus when we talk about something as simple as an EV charging hub. So this is sort of, the nugget. There's a whole 90-second version of this. This is about 10 seconds of just kind of the future of all the things that we're looking at. So you can see the different role that solar will come in, and I'll touch very, very briefly on some of those other things. Waste heat that's coming out into a TfL development, and all the wider aspects of this kind of future-facing city that we're looking at. So as I said, I'm going to focus on EV. One thing we're looking at, which obviously integrates very, very much with EV, is the solar piece, whether that's land, rooftop, trackside. Again, how can we integrate that with EV charging, make it as green as possible? How can we look at private wire, PPAs, and the like? So all of that comes into play here. And likewise for heat, not something we sort of typically associate with EV charging and try and connect, but again, it's this wider energy piece. It's addressing all of the needs. We're by far the biggest user in London. Some days we're the biggest user in the country. So we need to look into all of this. I'm not going to go into heat today, but typically if we're sat anywhere in London, someone will always come up and go, it's bloody hot on the tube. What are you doing about it? How are you addressing that? So one of the schemes that we're doing is trying to capture some of that waste heat and take it around developments in the city, see where we can utilize that, see where we can bring in private sector partners, just as we're doing with EV charging. There's your quiz section of the day. Basically, it's all going into the walls, and when you map it out, we have this mapping across London now. We'll talk about EV mapping in a moment, so we know where all of the heat's going at all times, and again, we can try and build businesses off the back of that. So coming on to EV then, I will spare you all of the air quality stuff, as I imagine you guys are fully versed in all of this, and I'm preaching to the converted. Obviously, air quality decarb is a huge, huge driver for what we're doing, but everything we have to do now has to try and have that social and economic impact as well. So this was the big question, and this was our sort of exam question that we set 2019. Should we be going out and delivering this infrastructure? Why is TfL doing it when others like ESB, who I'll mention again in a moment, they're doing the same? So what's the role for us to come in and play? Well, we looked at this and said, land and power are absolutely fundamental to this. So how can we go out, better utilize the land, work with other London boroughs, other local authorities, and try and make that into a viable business proposition? So what we did, and I noticed that Element Energy, who were used for this work, were also used by Dublin. Cormac mentioned that earlier. We did this demand and supply analysis. So where's the demand for all rapid, high-speed charging in London, overlay that with the supply. TfL owns 10,000 sites, so we put 600 of them into this. Demand, supply, gives you the heat map, tells you where to put a hub. What's a hub? It looks something like this. Future-facing, very, very high standards of what we call SAI, sustainability, accessibility, inclusivity. A lot of the standards in the industry aren't good enough. We need to get them higher. For the fella that wants to come and get a proper cup of coffee and chill, or go on a climbing wall or a yoga studio or all the other mad stuff that we're looking at. The lady wants to work. She needs a proper Wi-Fi connection, a little tech hub. Can we provide that? Can we make these sort of charging hubs of the future? So that's what we're now out trying to deliver. There's a little map. Obviously, I won't go into this in any great detail, but we know exactly where we need to be putting the charging, where all the red dots are, and some of the blues and the greens as well. For those that know London, a lot of that is the route out to Heathrow, North Cirque, South Cirque, North Circular, that is, and pockets of East London as well. So we know where we need to be able to put these. And then, of course, again, you guys will know this. There's a whole range, including ESB, of all the different designs. Fully charged, noted the one up at Braintree there earlier, which is still, I think, the largest that we've got. You've got the forecourts. That came up just in the very last session. We were talking about Shell and BP and others and their progression. The bottom left one is completely boring, but it's actually a residential development, and it's how we connect that with Resi, which again, I think is a huge part of this. You know, no one wants to live above a petrol station, but above an EV station, not such a big deal. And this is my shout out to ESB here, but ultimately in London, it's this move from the single points, of which we've got a lot. We're about 750 singles now. We need to get away from singles into hubs. We won't achieve the scale. I don't think any city will achieve the scale if it doesn't get to those hubs. So that's absolutely key. I'm not going to go into this in any great detail, but it's something we think a lot about as well. Future beyond the plug. Wireless power through induction or through infrared, and I've used the infrared example there of a company that's currently, you know, providing over-the-air charging. How are all these things going to come in and play? Are they going to be able to provide these services? So we're looking at that. Some of this stuff is probably 10 years away. Same with connected autonomous, right? We know it's coming, but we're definitely not worried about it coming right now. But we've got to start thinking about where that fits in. My closing little 30 seconds is just the other reason why I'm here and meeting some colleagues, others from TII and NTA as well tomorrow, is thinking a little bit about the other work that TfL can do and has been doing already with Ireland, with all of these sorts of things where we go around the world and ultimately we try and help other cities, other jurisdictions with, and it might be things like Olympic legacy projects, it might be terrorist prevention, it can be stopping suicides on tracks. It's varied hugely, but in the context of something like this, obviously it's about building better transport, better infrastructure, e-mobility, and the like, and that's the sort of thing where we offer and we come out and provide this. So that's something we're doing, but it's not quite as exciting maybe as some of the previous stuff, but that's kind of, you know, it from me. I wanted to leave a little bit of time as well if there were any questions about the London experience, anything that Dublin can take from that, any, you know, lessons learned, plenty that we've got wrong, obviously. So hopefully there's some things in that, and we can speak about any of that.